Good morning, friends. How are you? I decided to flip around so that the sun isn't behind me. So, I want to talk to you about Samhain, which is American Halloween or International Halloween. I don't know who all celebrates Halloween, but Samhain is what I celebrate at the same time everybody else is celebrating Halloween. And you're probably thinking, like, well, what's the difference? So, I've been really busy doing awesome things and great opportunities, and but preparing for my 50th birthday, which is coming up in a few weeks, and preparing the month for Samhain. And Samhain, which is actually spelled Samhain or Samhuinn, depending on which spelling you're using, but pronounced, no matter how it's spelled, it's pronounced Samhain, is the cultural backdrop, like the thing that created what we now celebrate as Halloween. So it is a Celtic festival, 3 day, 3 nights, starting on October 31st and then lasting into November, the first few days of November. And it was in certain parts, it was actually a required celebration. It honored soldiers, and it's considered the thinnest veil between the living and the dead. And so we have another one where it's the thinnest veil between the living and spirit world as well. So these are holidays that have been celebrated for generations, right? So it's funny because I've never been a huge Halloween fan. I'm not a fan of spooky things, bloody things, horror, or anything like that. And people who know that I'm into all of this, my cultural Celtic heritage and Druidry, the philosophy of Druidry, often assume that I'm really into Halloween. So when Halloween stuff starts coming out, people send me stuff. They're like, "Oh, BRG, you should get this." And I'm like, "No, no, I'm not into that," And then they're like, "Well, are you like legit? Are you like a legit Celtic, ancient Celtic, you know, Druid philosophy person, or like what's your deal?" And ironically, Halloween is the one holiday where my whole family would actually get along. So, people have like Christmas and Easter and, Thanksgiving and holidays. Well, in growing up, the one holiday where my brothers and their wives and their children would all come to my mother's house was Halloween for trick or treat. And it was like a big deal. My mother loved Halloween. She would sit on the front porch with our black cat and wear a black hat, you know, with our black cat wearing a black hat. She would be planning the candy for like months before Halloween started. She'd have different bags for different age groups. So if you had a little kid, you'd get candy appropriate for tiny people, and if you were a bigger kid, you would get like the Snickers bars or whatever. And she was really, really into it, and we all got along really, really well. Um, and of course, I've dressed up for Halloween. When my boys were coming up, I never let them dress up as scary stuff. They had to be more creative than that. And um, even now, like I'm just not a huge fan of the scary stuff. And I think it's because I I don't I don't like the celebration of negative energy, right? The function of those costumes in the Celtic tradition was to ward off evil spirits. It wasn't to celebrate evil spirits. And I think that's been lost in translation. And so I think we allow for all this negative energy, this celebration of gore and the celebration of evil. That wasn't the purpose of the scary outfits. The scary outfits were they were turnips originally, and then we have pumpkins more here, so we use pumpkins. But jack-o'-lanterns and the scary costumes were meant to scare off the evil spirits, so that the good spirits and the good souls could come through and spend time with the living. So I think we've lost that, and now it's just like, how scary can I be? How obnoxious. I'm sorry, I don't know what the word is, but obnoxious we can be with our costumes. And it's funny, my son loves haunted houses. He doesn't like real scary things, like real ghosts or anything like that. He's scared of all that. But he likes like the Haunted Mansion at Disney, and he likes like the whole month of October for his, since he's been old enough, has been every weekend going to a different haunt. And it's expensive. I need like a second job just to afford all of it, because they're so expensive now. And I hate them. He's at that age now. I mean, he's disabled, so he can't drive himself, so I can drive him. And I drop him off and I let him go. I don't go in with him because I just don't appreciate or value the message that all of it sends. And in some ways, and I'm, I'm of the generation of not getting butthurt about all kinds of things, but and I'm not butthurt about this, but to me, it's almost an insult to the solemn and beautiful nature of Samhain. It's almost the same as people who obsess over Santa at Christmas time, and really embrace that sort of secular tradition over the Christian tradition of the birth of Christ. So it's the same with Halloween, right? We've taken it to an extreme, and it's super secular. So I very rarely speak about it to people because people are so kind and so sweet, and they send me oh, BRG, you should see this cool like bat thing, and I'm like, that's nice. Or like, you should watch this horror movie. I can't believe you don't watch horror movies. And the big shock to everybody is that I have neither seen Hocus Pocus 1 or 2, and I've never seen Harry Potter or read the books. And part of that is because the Harry Potter stuff is because my tradition in literature is not fantasy. So I sort of I'm an American Romantics person, Emerson, Thoreau, Whitman, Poe, that sort of thing. And so I'm not drawn to fantasy literature, so it has nothing to do with whether I like wizards or not. It's just that I'm typically not drawn to that sort of, King Arthur's probably, the King Arthur tales, Lord Tennyson, that's probably the closest, I will get, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, that kind of thing. That's probably the closest to fantasy that I get. And I'm not drawn to witchy movies. I'm not, for the same reason. Like, I think Hocus Pocus is probably a very cute movie. I like Bette Midler. But I think it probably would irritate me that we're mischaracterizing witchcraft into a certain kind of thing, and then it propels misconceptions about witchcraft. And I'm not a witch, and I don't know anything about witchcraft really, but I suspect that the comparison I can make is that if you've seen, there was a movie about this woman who said that she had hiked the PCT, after addiction and everything. Susan Strayed, can't remember the name of her movie, but it was dangerous. What happened is a lot of people thought that they could hike the PCT with a garbage bag, wearing Nike sneakers and jeans. And so then there were all these rescues that had to happen because, first of all, she makes up a lot of what's going on in that book. She didn't hike the whole PCT. I believe she hiked little parts of it, but I don't believe she hiked it end to end. And nobody who was on trail at that time actually saw her. So, the hiking community is very big, but it's also very small. So you will have heard of or have encountered people on the trail. So I don't believe her account. I think it's a work of fiction. But it caused a lot of problems because, people thought that they could they could go out and just take a garbage bag and hike the trail. And you can't. You have to be prepared, especially the PCT, because it's much more isolated than even the AT. So I feel like Hocus Pocus probably does the same thing. It makes witchcraft into something that it's not. So I've been benched for my foot, and I've been watching different videos, and I'm interested in the concept of witchcraft, not because I have any interest in becoming a witch, because I'm not called to that path, but I feel like because so many people ask me about witchcraft, I should maybe learn something, learn a thing or two. And it's hard to find good information because I don't know what's right or what's wrong. And it's interesting because I feel like the same thing is true with druidry. There's so much out there, and like, how do you know like what's like legit and what's not legit? And in a quest to be as authentic as possible, how do you know what's good? And I stumbled across a YouTuber, and I'm gonna link her below. And she talks about I like her. I don't know much about her background, but she's been a witch a long time. And I believe she has 2 books out, and I believe she's Wiccan. But she clearly knows the difference between Wicca and witchcraft, which that's probably all I knew about witchcraft and Wicca before, that they were different. But she said that in the video that I'm going to post below, she talks about something that I experienced too in the druid community. I'm independent because I'm a philosophical druid. I'm not a religious druid. I embrace the philosophy. And she actually makes some really great parallel points. One is that it isn't practice until you practice, right? Like, you can read about druidry like all you want, but that doesn't make you a druid. That doesn't make you, reading about witchcraft doesn't make you a witch. The actual practice of druidry or witchcraft, that's what actually makes you a druid or a witch. And then the second thing is that there is this expectation in the community that you have, in communities, that you have certain kinds of things, like certain kinds of tools, and that you do certain kind of rituals, and this is the way to do it. Witchcraft has, apparently, I had no idea. This is what I've learned in the past 12 weeks. There are apparently all kinds of different witches. Like, there's different, like kitchen witches and forest witches, and there's all different kinds, kind of like denominations of a church. Like, there's a lot of them. And I probably haven't even scratched the surface of whatever they are. But like, if you're going to be this kind of witch, you have to have these kinds of tools. And there's, I mean, they use in their spells, they use blood and urine and all sorts of things that I have no idea about. But like she was saying in the video that I'm going to clip below, like, people will think less of her because she doesn't use like so much blood or so much, and she doesn't look scary, and she doesn't have the witchy look. And I feel that way often about druids, because we have this idea that you have to, do these certain spells, and you have to act a certain way. And I've been closeted for, many years as a druid, but because neither Christians nor druids accept the path that I'm on. Not all of them, but a lot of them, say, well, you can't embrace the druid philosophy if you're Christian. Nonsense. You can't be a druid if you're Christian, because the Christians killed the druids. Apply that to any other historical thing where somebody has taken over something else. I mean, come on, like that logic doesn't hold up over time, right? So I find that the same is true. And then, when you look at druids, it's like, well, if you don't do this and that for the eightfold wheel, if you don't do these rituals, a lot of the rituals simply don't resonate with me, because I have my own rituals for Christianity, but also because gods are mentioned in them, and they're turning druidry into a religious practice, which it's not. Right? There's no central text. There's no central deities. It is a philosophy, where, it's not a religious practice, at least as far as I understand it and how it's been presented through history. So, this whole idea that there's a right or wrong way, right? That there's some kind of club you have to belong to, that if you have to have the right stuff, you have to spend all this money to buy all the right things, like those sort of misconceptions lead people to think that witches do this and druids do that, and our media doesn't help. Like, Hocus Pocus, cute as it is, has everybody thinking that witches are one way. If that's the only thing you've ever seen about witches, you are going to think that witches are that way. And I don't know what way they are, because I've not seen the movie, but I'm skeptical of all kinds of stuff like that, because I just think it gives the wrong message. And Halloween, as Americans have appropriated it, is crazy, because it celebrates horror, which is not the function of the scary costumes. The scary costumes were meant to scare away bad spirits, not draw them in. So anyway, I am wishing all of you a very, very happy Samhain. It is a revered and solemn holiday, really, because you are connecting with the spirit world. It's the thinnest veil, so it's a chance for you to invite spirit in and to invite your loved ones in and to communicate with them. So look for signs. The easiest thing to do, you don't have to have all kinds of crystals and candles and all that stuff. Just sit quietly. Meditate if that's the thing that you do, or just sit quietly outside, and invite your ancestors in, invite your loved ones into your heart, and then look for signs. You can do a little fancier stuff if you want. We have a meal where we leave a plate, for our loved ones. We have a Samhain meal, and a fire. All of the Celtic celebrations have fire. So, we have a fire, and we remember our ancestors at the fire. And it's much like church, right? It's All Saints Day. You do the same thing. You just do it in a church building. So it's the same thing in my yard, right? So you can do those things too. I'm wishing you all a blessed Samhain, and I'm wishing all of you all the best in light and love. Be well. Bye-bye.